Hey guys, welcome back. This is the story of an S-rank blacksmith who quit everything for a slow life. But the swords he forged in peace ended up changing the entire world. The story begins in the S-rank guild building called Wings of Glory. A blacksmith named Sig approaches the guild master. He reports that he and his apprentices are unable to keep up with the abundance of work and requests a reduction in the number of orders. Glancing at him, Guildmaster Schmidt coldly asks what kind of childish whims these are. He continues, noting that unlike adventurers who risk their lives every day, fearlessly fighting monsters, blacksmiths sit in a warm and safe place. Schmidt advises him to try to cope. Sig looks at him grimly. Blacksmiths already work themselves to exhaustion, sacrificing sleep. Sig clenches his fists tighter. How dare the guild master call him and his comrades spoiled children? The S-rank guild, Wings of Glory, has its own blacksmith workshop. In addition to making weapons for adventurers, it also accepts external orders for forging. Schmidt has accumulated a mountain of orders and, on top of that, has set quotas. No matter how much the workers complain, the guild master remains deaf to their words. With a heavy heart, Sig decides to accept it. After all, Schmidt is his employer. Sig meekly says that the blacksmiths will manage somehow this month. However, in return, he asks for permission to forge a katana. Closing his eyes wearily, Schmidt recalls that Sig has indeed wanted to make such a weapon for a long time. The blacksmith adds that he had a contract with the previous guild master that allowed him to make katanas from the guild's materials. Schmidt dismisses this, wondering what is the point of making an unpopular, weak, and fragile type of weapon. Sig tries to argue, saying that the main thing is to make the katana for its owner. The guild master interrupts him, saying that there is no point in complicating things. With a cold smile, he reminds him that blacksmiths must do what is written in the order. Schmidt advises him to forget about the foolish idea of katanas. Gritting his teeth, Sig mentally repeats the guild master's words. He asks if this means that Schmidt will not allow him to make katanas. Schmidt is annoyed by the blacksmith's persistence. Sig's patience comes to an end. He announces that he is quitting today. Schmidt leans forward sharply, reminding him that this is actually an S-rank guild. The blacksmith calmly replies that it is the guild master who has violated the terms of the contract. He says that there are plenty of people vying for Sig's position and adds that the blacksmith should not even think about asking to return. The main character simply turns around and leaves the office. Soon, the main character is standing in his room, sadly looking around. He is sorry to leave his job, but he understands that with such a heavy workload, he would have broken down anyway. Glancing at his katana, Sig begins to pack his things into a magic bag. After packing up, leaving the room clean, and taking his katana, the main character heads to the smithy. Work is in full swing there, and everyone is busy fulfilling orders. Sig looks sadly at the hardworking blacksmiths. He would like to say goodbye to everyone, but many of the workers are now accompanying a large-scale raid. Sig approaches his table and begins to put away his tools. A guy with light hair tied back in a ponytail notices him. He calls out to the blacksmith, and, noticing that Sig is packing up his weapons and tools, asks if the main character is going on a business trip. Sig tells Torque that he has decided to leave the guild. The guy is shocked by this news. He says in horror that they are already barely coping with the new regulations, and now Sig is leaving too. The main character notes that he has been told that a replacement will be found without difficulty. Torque asks again, confused. He adds that the forge is only coping because the main character helps everyone. He anxiously asks what to do with Keed's weapons now. Only Sig knows how to work with them. The main character regrets that he will have to stop working with Keed. She is the only one in the entire guild who loves katanas. The main character says aloud that he is entrusting Torque with the care of Keed's weapon. The guy is not at all thrilled with this prospect. Keed does not allow anyone but Sig to touch her katana. Torque is afraid that the adventuress will chop him to pieces with that very blade. The main character gently asks the guy. The guy asks again, confused. The main character adds that he hopes to set an example for all employees. They should not tolerate such behavior. He asks Torque to say goodbye to the others for him. The guy calls out to Sig, but he is already leaving the kitchen, closing the door behind him. The main character stops on the street, lost in thought. He has left the guild, but what should he do now? His options are to find another job or open his own workshop, although the main character does not have a license. It's hard to believe that after so many years of working for the guild, it all ended in an instant. Sig wanders the streets of the city when suddenly an appetizing smell stops him. Next to him, a man is grilling meat for sale. The main character politely asks him for 2 rock bird things. The man is already preparing to fill the order, but he looks up and recognizes Sig. He wonders why the main character has come during working hours. The man's apprentice stops working and turns around, knife in hand. He asks if the merchant is an acquaintance. The merchant explains that he is a wonderful blacksmith and adds that it was the main character who sharpened the knife the apprentice is holding. The merchant looks at the knife with admiration because it is very sharp. Sig is glad that the knife is still with the merchants. The man wishes the protagonist bon appetit and serves him meat. The protagonist thanks the merchant. Leaving the counter in the town square, the main character approaches the fountain and sits down on its railing, leaning his katana against it. He unwraps the meat, enjoying its wonderful taste. Although the food is very juicy, it does not fall apart. Sig is pleased that his knife is being used so carefully. Suddenly, someone screams in the square. Someone orders everyone to run away because it is dangerous on the street. Continuing to chew, the main character turns in confusion toward the noise. He notices a man who is furiously shouting and destroying everything in his path with a huge sword. The main character decides that this is a raging drunkard. If he continues in the same vein, he will be quickly stopped. Before Sig can finish his thought, a girl from the knightly order orders him to make way for her. She stands before the rowdy adventurer and, pointing her finger at him, demands that he drop his weapon. The girl holds a sword tightly in her hand. She warns that if he resists, she will cut him down. The merchant, his apprentice, and the main character watch the scene unfold intently. Bayan, growling with anger, asks if the girl also thinks he is an idiot. He lunges at her. The girl raises her sword. With a cry, the man strikes. His opponent, gasping hoarsely, she manages to parry the blow of the huge sword. Sig, watching the battle, realizes that the girl clearly has skills, but she has no experience in real combat. The man will simply overwhelm her. Bayan strikes again. The clang of clashing weapons makes the main character wince. The sound is very unpleasant. The main character notes that the man is using his long sword like a club. The blades are too different in thickness. If the man continues to fight in the same vein, the girl's sword will simply not withstand it. Just then, Bayan lets out another cry of rage and prepares to strike. The girl closes her blade. The man jumps and strikes his sword against his opponent's weapon, cutting it in two. The girl is left with only the hilt. She looks lost at the broken blade and shifts her gaze to the half in her hands. The girl is surprised that the sword of the proud Scarlet clan has broken. She cries out and falls to the ground. The drunkard approaches and looms over the girl. Deciding that it's time to intervene, Sig jumps up from his seat and runs toward the fighters with his katana at the ready. The merchant's assistant watches him, his mouth agape. He asks his boss in shock if the main character is really a blacksmith and anxiously asks him to stop him. The merchant simply refuses, to the boy's surprise. He adds reassuringly that everything will be fine with the main character. Sig stands in front of the girl. The drunkard asks irritably who he is, and with a shout, he rushes at his new opponent. The main character quickly draws his katana, and with a circular motion, he cuts the man's sword in two. The merchant watches with his arms crossed. His apprentice is amazed. The drunkard's face is frozen in dull bewilderment. The girl, her eyes wide and her mouth open, looks up at her savior. Casual onlookers wonder what kind of sword the main character has. The boy from a merchant's shop is amazed that the thin blade was able to cut through the drunkard's long weapon. Sig lowers his katana and turns to the girl. He notices that she seems to be unharmed. With a trembling voice, still sitting on the ground, she agrees. The main character coldly calls out to the drunken adventurer, who has lost all his money in an instant. Sig warns him that if such behavior is repeated, he will cut down the rowdy man himself next time. The frightened man falls to the ground. Hearing footsteps behind him, Sig turns around. The captain of the guard squad arrives and orders his subordinates to seize the strong man. The main character admonishes the adventurer to know his limits when it comes to drinking. The main character carefully examines his katana for damage. Finally, he makes sure that his weapon is intact and undamaged. After sheathing his katana, Sig is about to leave. A timid voice behind him stops him. The girl puts her hand on her chest and thanks the main character for saving her. She introduces herself. Her name is Sia Scarlet, and she is from the Third Knight Order of Mermaids. The girl wants to know the name of the man who saved her life. To her surprise, he waves her off and modestly replies that he did nothing remarkable. The main character waves goodbye and wishes her luck with her work. He leaves, but Sia rushes after him. She asks him to stop because she wants to thank him properly. Moreover, she still has some questions. But Sig does not stop and walks away. The disappointed Sia's attention is drawn to the merchant's apprentice, who excitedly tells his mentor that everything was just as he said. The girl hurriedly approaches them and, gesturing animatedly, asks if they know the man who cut the sword in one stroke. The merchant replies that he is a blacksmith, and it's not just that he is a skilled fighter, but also in his incredible katana. However, Sia had to see everything with her own eyes. Meanwhile, in the smithy, One of the workers approaches Torque with scrolls under his arm and asks what is so special about SIG. He adds that if it's about katanas, then no one really uses this type of weapon. So it turns out that the guild has lost nothing. Turning around, Torque indignantly replies that although his interlocutor is a novice, he knows unforgivably little about the main character. SIG single-handedly handled all external orders and never revealed anything about himself. After a pause, Torque adds that SIG's specialty is that he makes all his products individually for each person. This applies not only to katanas and other weapons, but also to everyday items such as scissors or a simple knife. If such items are made by the main character, they serve their owner faithfully and become his companions for life. For the main character, blacksmithing was not limited to working with metals. For him, it meant finding a special approach to the person who would use his creation in the future. SIG leaves the city and goes deep into the forest. He notices that it has been a long time since he last held a katana in his hands. The main character removes the scabbard from his belt. He looks at it thoughtfully. This blade is one of a kind and was created specifically for the main character. Since SIG is a blacksmith, he is confident that he must be able to handle weapons. The protagonist carefully removes the katana from its sheath. Let this weapon be unpopular and fragile. However, if unity is established between the blade and its owner, the katana will be able to cut even a long sword. Holding the weapon firmly by the hilt, the main character admires the gleam of the sharpened blade. For him, it is one of the most beautiful sights. The main character admits to himself that he truly loves katanas and would like to spend his life creating them. Just like back then, in his childhood, little SIG watched his father's work closely. His father explained that when creating a weapon, you need to imagine whose hand this blade will fit, with what force, and at what distance it will strike. In the same smithy, the main character now wants to forge a katana that will surpass his father's work. The main character's father used to say that he made tools that save the lives of those who use them. SIG is no longer a little boy, and with his skills, he will be able to make his dream come true. The main character's home village may be small, but has clean water and a mine with materials. Plus, the people there are nice, and there are no rules and regulations set by the guild. SIG decides it's time to go their home. The driver announces to SIG that they have arrived. SIG looks up, startled. With a smile, he remarks that it has been a long time since he was in the village. The main character spent a whole month on the road, endlessly changing carriages. Finally, his suffering was rewarded, and the main character reached his native village of Foka. He gets out of the carriage and stretches with pleasure. SIG heads to the village elder's house. He knocks on the door. Soon, the door opens slightly. An elderly village elder peeks out, wanting to know who has come to visit him. The main character greets him politely, noting that they haven't seen each other in a long time, and adds that he is SIG. The mayor, named Barris, sighs in amazement and happily says that the main character has grown so much that he is unrecognizable. He invites the main character to come in quickly. Soon, the headman and SIG are chatting, sitting at the table. Hearing that the main character has quit his job, Barris asks loudly and in surprise. The girls passing by the windows of the village head's house freeze, seeing the old man's confusion. SIG explains that he and the guild master, so to speak, had a difference of opinion. The main character worked tirelessly, but he was given more and more orders and was not even allowed to forge katanas. The main character's dream was to surpass his father. That is why he decided to return to his native village, where it was the most suitable place for this. Barris doubtfully reminds him that there are unlikely to be people in their village who can appreciate SIG's work. He understands this perfectly well. However, the main character simply wants to enjoy blacksmithing for his own pleasure. That will be more than enough for him. Squinting and smiling, the village elder remarks that the main character is the spitting image of his father. He adds that the SIG family's house and workshop are still standing. Barris asks if the main character wants to move in. The latter enthusiastically raises his head and instantly agrees. The village elder informs him that the blacksmith in their village is already at an advanced age and asks if the main character can replace him. After all, everyone would be happy to have a former S-rank guildmaster. SIG asks them to trust him. Now, he can make not only weapons, but also axes, knives, hoes, the list goes on and on. Laughing under his breath, Barris cheerfully remarks that the main character, who used to only know how to sharpen blades, has now become so reliable. The main character shyly asks not to be reminded of this, while the elder laughs heartily. Passing through the forest, SIG comes out onto a clearing near his house. It is indeed standing. The main character opens the door that he walks into the workshop. The walls are covered in cobwebs, the surfaces are covered in dust, but everything is in its place. The main character silently surveys the room. He notices that his father's katana is missing, but that was to be expected. It would be dangerous to just leave the weapon behind. SIG feels a wave of nostalgia and the familiar smell of iron and coal. He inhales deeply and immediately starts coughing violently. The main character decides that it wouldn't hurt to air out the room and throws open the window. Now he intends to explore the living quarters of the house. Entering the rooms, the main character stops at the door. He notes that the furniture has remained untouched. Sig smiles as he looks at his childhood drawings of weapons, left right on the wall. When the main character was little, he spent all his time here. Of course, he was scolded a lot as a child. Smiling, the main character gets down to business. With the help of a drawn spell, Sig fights the dust, feeling like a real force of nature. He collects all the trash into bags, deciding to take the junk outside for now. Already leaving with the bags, the main character stops in surprise. Two girls, one younger and one older, are standing on the doorstep, timidly looking at the main character. Sig notices how similar the strangers look to each other and decides that they must be sisters. He notices that the girls are afraid of him. Waving his hand, he greets them and introduces himself. The protagonist adds that he lived in this house 15 years ago and that the headman Barris has approved his return and extends his hand to the strangers. The girls silently shake his hand at the same time. The older one explains that they saw Sig with the headman and decided to come and say hello. Her name is Liliana, and her younger sister is Atra. The girl adds that they work on the farm and hunt. The main character is surprised that they are so young and already working so hard. Liliana says shyly that they are just helping their mother. She herself has only recently started hunting. The main character nods, thinking to himself about hunting. Liliana points to the house and asks if Sig is cleaning up now. She notices that there must be a lot of work to do and offers to help the main character. He agrees, but asks if the girls themselves are busy. Liliana enthusiastically replies that everything is fine, and Atra explains that they have a day off today. The main character invites them into the house. Soon they're all working together, wearing scarves over their faces to keep the dust out of their lungs. Atra watches Sig's spells with admiration and asks what kind of magic it is. He explains that it is the simplest spell for removing dust. Noticing that the main character is dragging a large box, Liliana excitedly offers to help him, as the box is clearly heavy. The main character calmly replies that he can handle it. The sisters freeze, looking at the main character and wondering if he is someone special. After a while, full of cleaning and hard work, the trio throws their arms up in victory. Finally, the job is done. Placing his hand on his chest, Sig thanks the girls for their invaluable help. The main character offers to forge something for them as a token of his gratitude. Since he is a blacksmith after all, Liliana remembers that the village head said that the main character is a very skilled craftsman. Atra, timidly clutching her sister's skirt, asks who a blacksmith is. Sig explains that a blacksmith is a person who makes weapons and, as an example, hands the little girl a katana. He allows her to look at the blade, but only carefully because it is dangerous. The girl admires the scabbard. She pulls the katana out a little and admires the sparkling blade, in which she can even see her reflection. The main character smiles. Atra returns the katana to him, and the main character adds that in addition to weapons, he can make any tools. After thinking for a moment, Liliana timidly asks for a kitchen knife, and Sig immediately agrees. Atra flashes her eyes and clenches her fists. She says she wants a knife like her sisters. Liliana gasps and turns to the girl. The girl adds that she wants to help her sister with cooking. Bending down, the main character praises the little girl, noting that she is very clever. Liliana says that Atra will find it difficult to use a knife. After all, it is designed for adults. Sig agrees, adding that it will require strength. The older sister tells her younger sister that it will be difficult for her to handle the knife. Atra asks disappointedly if she really can't use this tool. Laughing, the main character allows her to use it because she cares so much about her sister. He thinks to himself that he will have to make 2 knives. Out loud. However, the main character asks them to consider the tools a gift in honor of his return. He promises to make the knives tomorrow and bring them as soon as they are ready. Liliana bows, and both girls warmly thank the main character. After that, they leave. Night falls. Sig looks out the window at the darkening sky. He sighs heavily, feeling how tired he is. This is not surprising, since he started cleaning right after a long and tiring journey. It's time for him to rest, especially since it's so dark. The main character decides to organize his tools before going to bed. He lays them out on his work table. Only after arranging everything as usual does the main character realize that he has prepared for a working day out of habit. Sig hasn't slept properly for several days. His body is completely exhausted. However, his hand still grips the hammer handle tightly. Ever since the main character crossed the threshold of his father's house, thoughts of forging have been constantly spinning in his head. Looking thoughtfully at the tool, the main character admits that he cannot overcome his nature. Reaching into his bag, Sig makes sure that he has the materials with him. Every blacksmith has his own special techniques at work. The main character, for example, uses magic to increase the efficiency of forging, although some other masters despise this approach. However, in a guild where orders must be completed strictly on time, the main character had no other choice. But thanks to this practice, Sig has improved his skills. The main character casts a spell. He gets hot, which is not surprising. The material is heated to almost 800 degrees. Now the main character needs to join the steel to the base metal. To do this, he uses boron and iron oxide. With this, Sig glues the steel to the heated base. Then he heats and hammers it, forcing it to bond. When this finally happens, the main character shapes the knife from the blank, carefully wielding his tools. The knife is forged, and the main character looks at the fruit of his labor with a satisfied smile on his face. Sitting in front of the heated furnace, he realizes that freedom for him is doing what he loves when he is not driven by the relentless approaching deadlines. Sig wipes the sweat from his forehead. He reaches for the toolbox and takes out some items. The main character sits down cross-legged again, close to the fire. He has witnessed the transformation of a piece of metal into an elegant object so many times and has looked at the flames so often, but these sights never get boring. Quite the contrary. The more the main character watches, the more he is mesmerized by what he sees. He realizes that the time has come. He takes the knife out of the furnace, molten metal still dripping from it. Sig decides to test his creation. He chooses a tangerine as the test object. The main character places the fruit on the table. He simply cuts it with a knife. The confused protagonist freezes in front of the result of his experiment. Not only is the tangerine cut in half, but the table is also sawed in half. The sight shocks him. He looks anxiously at the knife in his hands. Shuddering, Sig realizes that he got carried away. Still staring at the shiny object, the protagonist blames his fatigue for causing him to lose concentration. It is too dangerous to give away such a knife. The main character returns to his workplace by the stove. He tells himself that he needs to work more calmly. The main character estimates the size of Atra's hand and reminds himself that the girl seems stronger than her peers. He's going to make another sheath. Meanwhile, in the city, a group of adventurers gather and talk. One of them wonders if the others have noticed that the quality of the weapons issued by the guild has deteriorated significantly. His companion agrees, adding that this is bad. After all, they are risking their lives. The guild should take the lives of its people more seriously. With these words, the adventurer angrily clenches the assignment in his fist. Meanwhile, Schmidt sits in his office, buried in papers, covering his face with his hand in helplessness. The next day, Sig knocks loudly on the door, holding a package under his arm. The door opens, and he is greeted by a woman with a friendly smile. She looks thoughtfully at the scabbard attached to the protagonist's belt. She asks if he is the blacksmith. The main character replies that he is and introduces himself with a bow. He adds that he is pleased to meet her. The woman says the feeling is mutual. Her name is Cynthia, and she is the mother of Liliana and Atra. The woman says that the girls are eagerly awaiting the knives that Sig is supposed to forge for them. The main character informs her that he has just finished working on them. Cynthia remarks in surprise that only one evening has passed. In response, the main character unwraps his bundle and shows her a pair of knives. The woman gasps in admiration. At that moment, the sisters enter the living room. Liliana asks her mother who has come. Sig waves to the girls. They recognize him immediately. He says he has brought knives and offers to let them try them out. The sisters enthusiastically accept this idea. The main character hands the knives to each girl. They thank him warmly. Liliana is delighted with the sheaths and carefully runs her hand over them. Then the girls take out their knives, and they freeze in reverent silence. The main character does not understand their reaction and asks if they do not like them. The sisters rush to assure him that they do. Liliana explains that the knife is so beautiful that she couldn't take her eyes off it. Sig is glad that the girls are happy with their gifts. Cynthia joins the conversation, remarking that she has never seen such beautiful knives before. Atra asks her permission to cut something, and the woman suggests taking a radish. The little girl resolutely takes the knife and wields it forcefully over the vegetable. The chief tries to stop Atra, but it's too late. Not only is the radish cut, but so is the cutting board. Everyone freezes in amazement. The main character anxiously asks the little girl if she has hurt herself. After making sure everything is in order, he explains that Atra doesn't need to press down on the knife, she just needs to lower it. The chief takes the girl's hands in his and shows her how to cut properly. Meanwhile, Liliana tries her knife. Both sisters look enthusiastically at the absolutely perfect cuts. Sig says that he tried not to make the knives too sharp and asks if they are comfortable for the girls to hold. They reply that everything is just perfect. Liliana asks how the main character managed to make such suitable knives, since he didn't take any measurements. He objects, and the girl asks in surprise, when? Sig reminds her of their handshake when they first met. After a pause, Liliana asks if that was enough for the main character. He simply replies that it's his job. By shaking a person's hand, the main character determines not only their dominant hand, size, or shape, but also the approximate structure of their bones and muscles. Liliana listens to Sig with admiration. He adds that with such data, he can do exactly what is best for the client. The older girl thanks the main character again from the bottom of her heart, and her younger sister joins in. Pressing the knife to her chest, Atra adds that she will cherish it. Sig reflects that a single sincere "thank you" said while looking straight into the eyes. He watches with a smile as the sisters show the knives to their mother. The main character recalls his work in the guild. Back then, orders were taken by employees in another department and then forwarded to the workshop. However, it is much easier to make the right tool when you see the customer face to face. That way, you can quickly understand what needs to be corrected. The main character put his heart and soul into these knives. Realizing this, Sig understands why working on these tools was so enjoyable. Once upon a time, it was possible to work the same way in Wings of Glory. But the guild became more and more famous, and with its growing popularity, the number of orders increased. This inevitably led to less time for communicating with customers. Then they banned the manufacture of katanas altogether. The main character stopped seeing customers altogether. He had to do everything on an assembly line and simply fulfill his daily quota. Gloomy, Sig realizes that at some point his soul simply grew cold. Noticing the change in the main character's mood, Liliana asks anxiously, "What's wrong?" The main character replies to the confused girl that he is simply happy. Smiling, he adds that the best reward for a craftsman is to see a satisfied customer. To himself, Sig thinks that he terribly missed working directly with people. He had long wanted to create custom instruments again. Atra smiles happily. Hesitating, Liliana asks if she can ask the main character to do something else. He asks her to clarify what exactly. Waving her hands, the girl says she needs arrowheads. Sig remembers Liliana mentioning that she hunts. She says that her father was a skilled hunter and that she learned from him. Cynthia gently hugs Atra around the shoulders. Liliana continues, saying that her father died in the epidemic. Now she's trying to replace him, but so far it's not going well. That's why the girl decided to turn to the main character. He asks Liliana to bring her bow and arrows, one of which he will take as a sample. She quickly returns with the weapons. He thanks her. The main character takes one of the arrows and examines it carefully. He asks if Liliana can shoot for him once. They go outside. The girl pulls back the bowstring, and her arrow hits the tree trunk as intended. Liliana sighs. Sig remarks that she is quite skilled. The girl explains that she can hit the target without difficulty, but she lacks the strength to kill. She approaches the tree and pulls out the arrow. Liliana says that the main character has made very sharp knives and hopes that he will be able to make the arrowheads lighter without losing their penetrating power. Thinking for a moment, the main character replies that he understands the girl. He adds that he will make the tips today and invites Liliana to come by in the afternoon. She thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Back in his workshop, Sig sits down by the furnace. He needs to increase the piercing power while maintaining strength. It's not an easy task. However, he gets to work. Soon, the main character casts a whole box of tips. Then he attaches one of them to the arrow. The main character examines his work and decides that it turned out just fine. Finally, Sig can leave his hot and stuffy workshop. He rushes out into the street and enjoys the fresh breeze filled with the sense of nature. He spreads his arms and smiles broadly. The main character feels his hot body cool down with pleasure. He is blissful until his nose starts to tickle. The main character sneezes loudly and decides that he should take care not to catch a cold. Liliana arrives and gasps at the sight of the beautiful arrowheads. Sig says he managed to make them lighter. The girl replies that she already noticed because her old ones were much heavier. The main character adds that all that remains is to test their penetrating power. He has already attached one arrowhead and invites Liliana to shoot at a tree in the backyard. The girl takes an arrow and goes outside. She pulls back the bowstring. She takes aim and releases the arrow. It pierces the tree trunk clean through. Liliana gasps, shocked by the result. The main character asks how she is. The girl says enthusiastically that it's just incredible. Laughing awkwardly, Sig replies that all his former colleagues knew how to make such things. Liliana can't believe that all the craftsmen in the city are so skilled. She is sure that everyone in the village will be shocked. Then the main character remembers the words of the village head and notes that the blacksmith in the village is already quite old. The girl admits that this is true. The main character says that as soon as he gets settled in, he will start taking orders. Sig goes out to the central square. He scratches the back of his head when he sees a whole crowd. He hasn't even finished setting up yet, and people are already gathering. The mayor said that would bring the villagers together, but the main character thinks there are too many of them. They look at the main character with suspicion. Sig recalls his conversation with the village elder. Varys suggested that he meet the locals in the square. He advised the main character to take his tools with him, so that he wouldn't be constantly distracted by people greeting him. The main character agreed that this would be very useful. The mayor said he would tell everyone that a skilled blacksmith was coming to the square. Sig asked him not to put pressure on him. Now the main character is sitting in the square. A boy separates himself from the crowd and approaches the main character. Calling Sig an old man, the boy asks if he is the skilled blacksmith that the village head spoke of. Surprised by this question, the main character replies that he cannot judge how skilled he is, but he was asked to help. He adds that he can repair and sharpen tools, any equipment, and anything else, to be honest. The boy looks at him suspiciously. He notices that the main character seems very unsure of himself. He adds that he's afraid to trust him with his tool, but what can he do? The boy unwraps the cloth and hands over the axe. Thinking it over, the main character asks if the young man is a woodcutter. The boy wonders where he got that idea. Sig replies briefly that it's obvious from his physique. The boy notices that the main character seems to understand something after all, so he'll trust him to sharpen his axe. The boy thanks him and asks if 30 silver coins is a normal price. The young man replies that if he doesn't like the result, the main character will give him a discount. The boy agrees. Sig takes something out of his bag on his belt and settles down next to the machine. The boy has no intention of leaving. On the contrary, he hangs over the main character and eagerly asks what it is. The protagonist is just casting a spell and replies briefly that it is a tool for sharpening. He warns that it will be a little noisy. The boy just waves his hand dismissively. The main character gets to work, and the boy grabs his head in alarm. He shouts, "Why is Sig sharpening so aggressively?" The main character calmly explains that the axe is thick and nothing will happen. The gathered crowd watches the main character's every move and hangs on his every word. The main character understands perfectly well that the crowd is trying to evaluate him. He decides to just focus on his work. Finally, Sig finishes and hands the axe to its owner, asking for his opinion. The young man looks closely at his tool. Then he admires its beauty, jumping up and down with excitement. With shining eyes, he notes how sharp the axe has become. Smiling, the main character asks if the young man recognizes his skills. Waving goodbye, the young man replies that no one would doubt it after seeing such work. The crowd instantly comes to life. Now, everyone gathered there's clamoring to have their tools sharpened too. Holding out his palms in a conciliatory gesture, Sig agrees, but asks them to come up one at a time. The main character notes the incredible number of tools that are used with love. He has something to strive for. Meanwhile, in the city, Schmidt thanks his visitor for coming. He introduces himself as the guild master of Wings of Glory. He asks how he can help his visitor. His visitor is Sia from the Third Night Order. The girl remarks that his guild is considered one of the best, and Schmidt immediately replies that he is flattered. Sia explains that she would like to meet someone from. Smiling, the guild master announces that the best adventurers have gathered at Wings of Glory. He asks who the girl is looking for. She replies that she is looking for a craftsman who forges katanas. The smile disappears from Schmidt's face. Sia adds that she needs a blacksmith named Sig. The girl from the Order of Knights tells her story. From that very memorable skirmish with a drunken adventurer, she can't get the blade that cut through the long sword out of her head. Every swing of the weapon reminds her of what happened. Sia wants to get the katana that Sig owns. The girl first picked up a sword when she was 6 years old. Then she honed her skills for years at the Royal Fencing School. She is not supposed to desire any weapon other than a sword. She knows this very well, but she can't help herself. Sia explains to Schmidt that she has not been able to overcome her desire to take up the katana. That is why she came to the guildmaster. He informs her that, unfortunately, Sig left Wings of Glory about 2 weeks ago. However, Schmidt is ready to recommend other blacksmiths from his guild. He is confident that they are not inferior to the main character in skill and may even surpass him. Schmidt thinks that the blacksmiths will definitely be able to handle the katana. Sia politely but firmly refuses. She stands up. She adds that even she knows that only a few possess such skill. The girl approaches the door, preparing to leave, and adds that, as far as she understands, Sig has a special love for katanas. Turning around, Sia asks if Schmidt really believes that there is a blacksmith who can make a katana better than Sig squinting. The guild master silently watches the girl leave. As soon as she leaves, Schmidt curses, slumps into his chair, and stamps his foot. He shouts that it all depends on skill, not the type of weapon. The guild master thinks irritably, why is everyone suddenly so obsessed with katanas? Meanwhile, the main character is concentrating on smelting weapons in his workshop. The main character waits patiently. Finally, the sound of the blade contracting due to different cooling speeds is heard. Blacksmiths call this the first cry of the blade. Sig finds this extremely poetic. He takes out the weapon, holding it through a rag so as not to burn himself. The main character polishes the blade and cools it, and finally exhales. There is not much left to do. The main character notes that the more time he spends on it, the better the result. He knows that if he follows a certain sequence, first a coarse whetstone, then a medium one, and finally a finishing whetstone, a beautiful wavy pattern will appear on the blade. Sig looks thoughtfully at the beautiful weapon in his hands. He had never had the opportunity to work so carefully and meticulously on a single blade for 2 whole years. Of course, the main character's skill level has grown significantly during his time in the guild, but he is still far from his father's level. One can only wonder how his father managed to become such a skilled blacksmith. He smiles slightly. The main character gently strokes the blade, sitting down in front of the stove again. Because of this, he was never able to give up blacksmithing. After work, Sig happily climbs into the bathtub. Both the dirt and fatigue dissolve under the warm water. The main character's house has a bathtub, which is quite rare for a village. Working in the guild, the main character only had time to quickly rinse off. There was simply no time to relax in the water. He constantly had to chase the norm. Neither Sig's body nor his soul had time to calm down. An hour ago, Atra and Liliana came to see the main character. The latter timidly remarked that the main character was all black. Rubbing his neck awkwardly, he replied that he had spent 5 days without leaving the workshop. The older sister handed Sig some game, wild boar meat. Liliana enthusiastically explained that she had managed to catch the animal thanks to the protagonist's arrowheads. He was happy for the girl and thanked her for the treat, accepting the meat. After bathing properly, the main character began to cook. Now that his soul was full, it was time to feed his body. Noting how good the meat was, Sig chose a recipe. First, he pierces the meat, then rubs salt and pepper into it. Then it's time for the main character to be patient, because the meat needs to be left for 3 days. The main character reassures himself that the result will be worth it. Liliana comes up to Sig, greets him cheerfully, and takes off her hood. The main character greets her and, noticing her clothes, asks if she's going hunting. She nods and says that the main character seems to be seeing her in her gear for the first time. He smiles and remarks that Liliana looks very good in her outfit. The girl blushes and turns bright red. She hastily changes the subject to wild boar meat and asks if Sig liked it. He replies that he hasn't eaten it yet. Liliana asks again, alarmed. The main character hastens to reassure the girl, explaining that the meat is salted. She decides that he has made preserves. However, the main character explains that he is going to smoke the game. Liliana remarks in confusion that this is what food is. Excitedly jumping up to the girl, Sig shakes her by the shoulders. He ardently informs her that smoked meat is incredibly delicious. The main character adds that preparing this dish is comparable to a true art. The taste changes depending on the wood chips or temperature. Liliana obediently agrees. The main character announces that he is preparing everything for cooking and invites the girl to watch him smoke the meat. Approaching, Liliana asks what the box in the clearing is. Patting the object with his hand, Sig proudly announces that it is his homemade smoker. The main character lights the hickory chips, explaining each step to the girl as he goes. Then he hangs the meat so that all the moisture drains out. Liliana remarks that it smells delicious. The main character explains that this is because hickory does not have a strong aroma and gives a nice color. After patting the wall of the homemade smoker again, Sig smiles and tells the girl to come back in 5 hours. After repeating the time, Liliana agrees. 5 hours pass, and the girl returns as promised. She announces that she is tired of waiting. The main character solemnly opens the smokehouse. Liliana admires the beautiful brown color of the meat, its shine, and notes that it looks very tasty. The main character says that after 2 more days of drying, it will be ready to eat. The girl can't believe that the dish isn't ready yet. 2 days later, the sisters are working together when Liliana suddenly calls out to the beaming Sig. He shows her the meat and tells her it's ready. The girl happily asks if they can eat it now. The main character nods, but adds that he would like to treat everyone. He asks where Cynthia is. Atra explains that their mother is helping in the neighboring field. With a voice trembling with excitement, Liliana suggests that the 3 of them have lunch together and save a portion for Cynthia. The girl adds enthusiastically that she simply cannot wait any longer. The main character thinks that this is a great opportunity to increase the number of smoked meat fans. Smiling, he agrees to start the meal with the 3 of them. Liliana, holding the meat, notes its exquisite aroma. Atra adds that it is brown and firm. Taking a break from setting the table, Sig says that the dish looks appetizing. Since it is already seasoned, All that remains is to fry it in a pan. Then the main character carefully cuts the meat and distributes it among the plates. He announces that the smoked wild boar steak is ready. The sisters are already salivating. Liliana notices the delicious smell again, and Atra says that the food looks extremely appetizing. Wishing each other a pleasant meal, the trio sits down at the table. Admiring his dish, the main character notes that the aroma of smoked hickory mixes with the smell of meat, a real delight. He tries a piece and moans with pleasure. The meat is simply irresistible. The wonderful aroma fills his nose, and the exquisite taste reigns in his mouth. The sweet fat of the wild boar and the rich red meat literally melt on the tongue. As soon as you take a bite, the wild meat juices burst out of the dish. The girls also try the long-awaited meal. They really like it and remark that it is incredibly delicious. The meat is crispy on the outside, but remains juicy on the inside. Without false modesty, Sig admits that the dish turned out perfectly. Liliana turns to the main character with shining eyes and says that she never imagined that smoking could make meat so delicious. He slyly replies that it doesn't taste anything like canned meat. The girl admits that she can't stop and spears another piece with her fork. Sig smiles as he watches the sisters eat with such pleasure. Atra also really likes the dish. The trio continues to eat. The boss is lost in memories. Of course, the meat and alcohol he ate during breaks at work were also very tasty. However, it could never compare to smoke game. Atra cheerfully asks for seconds, and the main character gets up from the table to fry some more meat. Liliana calls out to him thoughtfully. She notices that Sig has been forging ever since he arrived in the village. She wonders what he will do with all the things he has made. Scratching the back of his head, the main character smiles and replies that he doesn't know yet. The main character explains that before, it was enough for him to just forge, but now that he has left the guild, he is curious to see how his work will be evaluated. Liliana listens to him attentively. Sig finishes by saying that no one in the village needs katanas. The girl suggests that he go with them to Umbert. They sell their harvest at the market there. Atra, with her mouth full, adds that such meat can also be successfully traded. The main character is surprised to note that Umbert is a small town. Liliana explains that it has changed a lot over time and has now become the liveliest region in the area. Atra dreamily adds that there are shops there too. Sig realizes that he hasn't been to Umbert in 15 years. The older girl says that they are going to the city in 2 days and invites the main character to join them if he wants. The main character thinks that if he creates what he likes and sells it at a price he sets himself, it will bring him closer to his dream life. Sig replies that he agrees to go to Umbert. Liliana notes that there are monsters on the way to the city and asks if he can handle it. Atra is seriously interested in whether she can rely on a main character. Sig laughs and says he will help as much as he can, but advises not to rely on him too much, because he is just an ordinary blacksmith. The older girl thanks Sig warmly. Bowing, she explains that they often had to turn back because of monsters, and because of such delays, the vegetables lose their marketable appearance. Liliana is glad that the main character will accompany them. Atra is going to share the news with her mother. 2 days pass. Sig meets Cynthia and her daughters. After mutual greetings, Liliana timidly asks where the main character's luggage is. He pats the bag on his belt. The girl excitedly realizes that he has a magic bag. To Liliana's surprise, the main character offers to take the cart with them. He opens the bag, and the cart, turning into smoke, fits inside. Closing the magical item, Sig announces that he hasn't been to Umbert in a long time and suggests setting off. The girls look confused, and Liliana gets the feeling that they are just going on a picnic. Waving goodbye to their native village, the travelers set off on their journey. Liliana says that they should tread carefully from this point on, and the protagonist agrees. They stay ahead, with Cynthia and Atra slightly behind. The main character becomes serious, thinking that there are many monsters living in these forests, so the peaceful walk has come to an end. He hears his mother talking to his younger daughter. Cynthia notes that thanks to Sig, it is easy to walk even among the trees. Atra, jumping along as she walks, agrees. Usually they had to push the cart, but here they can walk calmly and not worry about anything. The main character is amazed at their carefree attitude. They are completely relaxed. However, the main character realizes that this behavior means that Cynthia and Atra completely trust him and Liliana, so he must not let them down under any circumstances. C'est soudain le frise. The older girl immediately asks what happened. The main character frowns and replies that there are monsters ahead. He adds that he is going to scout ahead. Liliana asks the main character to stay with her family, and the girl agrees. Sig makes his way through the forest. Finally, he stops and hides behind a tree. He cautiously peeks out from behind the trunk. A group of 4 green wolves has settled in the clearing. Apparently, the monsters have not yet noticed the travelers. The green wolves are sitting right on the road. The main character wonders what to do. He decides to go back and come up with a plan. The main character tells his companions what he has seen. Liliana seriously declares that the monsters must be killed. They have come too close to the village, so it will be better to get rid of them, especially since Sig has come with his family this time. He promises to try not to let them down. Liliana tells Cynthia and Atra to hide in this place for now. The woman asks her daughter to take care of herself. Liliana and Sig hide behind the bushes, watching the monsters. The green wolves still do not notice the presence of people. Reaching for an arrow, the girl volunteers to start and adds that she is counting on the main character. Standing up straight, she pulls back the bowstring and releases the arrow. At that moment, the main character quickly leaves their hiding place and jumps out into the clearing. Liliana's arrow hits its target, piercing the green wolf's throat. His companions, sensing danger, growl and rise to their paws. A couple of monsters rush at Sig. He quickly draws his katana from its sheath. With one swing, he cuts the green wolf's head off its body. Liliana is amazed by the sharpness of the blade, but she has no time to admire it. Another monster jumps out from behind the main character, growling menacingly and baring its teeth. It rushes forward, ready to sink its teeth into its enemies. Sig only staggers to the side in surprise, noting that it was close. Liliana already has her bow ready. Seeing the enraged green wolf, she wastes no time and fires an arrow. It hits the monster right in the neck, and it dies, managing only one last roar. The main character watches Liliana with admiration. The green wolves are defeated. The main character approaches the girl. He notices that she is truly skilled. Sig mentally notes that Liliana makes quick decisions and is not afraid of monsters. He says aloud that the girl would surely make an excellent adventurer. She replies that it's all thanks to the arrowhead Sig made. Before, the arrows didn't fly as accurately, and even if Liliana hit the target, she didn't always manage to finish off the beast. The main character carefully wipes the katana with a rag. The girl notices that he takes great care of his weapon. The main character explains that these are precautions against rust. To keep the blade strong and sharp, it must be cared for after battle. Liliana approaches the monster's body and pulls an arrow out of it. The tip is covered in blood. Sig appears behind the girl and asks if she will reuse the arrow. Liliana replies that if she throws them away after one use, she will go broke. The girl smiles and adds that the tips were made for her by the main character, so she wants to treat them with care. She carefully wipes the arrows, confirming her words. The main character recalls how he worked in the S-rank guild. There were also adventurer archers serving there. However, most of them threw away their arrows after the first use. They also demanded that Sig make new ones when these broke, otherwise what else would a blacksmith be needed for? The main character notices how tenderly Liliana looks at her cleaned arrow. Smiling, he realizes that he likes to see the faces of those who use the things he creates. The main character tells the girl to bring him the arrows if they break, and he will fix them right away. She asks again. Sig notes that Liliana is his #1 customer in his workshop. Blushing, the girl thanks him. She promises to take advantage of his generous offer. The main character looks at Liliana warmly. He thinks that in the countryside, he has managed to find his free forging. Cynthia and Atra come out onto the clearing. The little girl's stomach growls loudly, and she plaintively says that she is very hungry. Her mother suggests taking a break, and the main character agrees. After choosing a suitable spot, Cynthia opens a basket of food, inviting everyone to have lunch together. The sisters take their wraps. Inside are delicious sandwiches with spring vegetables. Looking at them, Sig realizes that he forgot to prepare lunch for himself. He is already thinking about making something right now. But then Cynthia comes up to him and hands him a portion. The main character asks if she really made lunch for him too. She confirms that she did. The main character decides to do something simple to show his gratitude. He takes out a clay pot and puts hickory chips on the bottom. He places a mesh on top of that and lays slices of cheese on top. Liliana approaches Sig, guessing what he is doing. The main character confirms her guess, admitting that he is smoking the cheese. The girl anxiously reminds him that they were going to get to Umber today. The main character asks Liliana not to worry and reassures her that this time it will be quick. He just wants to smoke the food a little. 10 minutes later, Sig opens the clay pot and a wonderful aroma wafts out. The main character takes out the sandwiches with tongs. He arranges them on a tray. He announces that the food is ready. Wishing each other bon appetit, the travelers begin to eat. First, the main character tries the sandwich that Cynthia made for him. A thick slice of bread with butter, spring vegetables, and a boiled egg, as well as mashed potatoes, perfectly seasoned with salt. Sig has been eating a lot of meat lately, so the vegetables are very welcome. He notes that both the appearance and taste are excellent, which pleases Cynthia. Atra, after trying the smoked sandwich, adds that it is also very appetizing. Liliana really likes the smell of cheese. The main character also tries the smoked sandwich. He likes it. The Swedish taste of smoke softens the salty cheese. Lunch is coming to an end. The main character notices that they have almost reached the city. Coming out of the bushes, Liliana points ahead. She says that the outer wall is already visible. Sig asks in amazement, noting that when he was in Umbert, it was not yet so developed. The girl replies that many surprises await the main character. The group approaches the gate, where a couple of guards are standing. The travelers must undergo a search. Sig begins to take his luggage out of his bag and hand it to Liliana. She thanks the main character again for his help. The guard watches them closely. He notices the magic bag and asks for their names and the purpose of their visit. The main character understands why his bag is receiving such close attention. After all, you can carry anything you want in it. He decides to be as honest as possible. Sig gives his name and explains that he is a blacksmith who has come to sell his katanas and knives. The guard is interested in what a katana is. The main character replies that they're the same blades as the ones on his belt and offers to show him. The guard admires the beauty of the katana. He orders Sig to give him the blade, but the protagonist begins to beg for mercy. The guard cheerfully announces that he was just joking and bursts out laughing. He asks if Sig will be trading at the market today. Hearing that he will, the guard says he will stop by if he has time. He is interested in seeing the protagonist's other products. The protagonist thinks to himself that the guard is not the type of person who tries to flatter others. The protagonist politely replies that he will wait. Walking through the streets of the city, Sig approaches the market and stops in surprise. He notes that Umbert is now bustling with activity. The main character remembered the city in a completely different state. Entering the market square, Sig looks around and notices that other blacksmiths are also trading at the market. Walking through the rows, the main character chooses a suitable place for himself. He pays 1 silver coin for it. The main character neatly lays out his products and decides that it's time to start trading. But evening comes, and Sig's business is going extremely poorly. Not a single customer has approached him. The main character is already feeling discouraged. He thinks it was extremely presumptuous to try to sell something without the support of the guild. No one knows him. Soon, it will be time for the main character to meet Liliana and her family. He is interrupted from his thoughts by a guard who approaches him. He asks if Sig has any merchandise left. He sadly replies that he has a whole mountain of it. This surprises the guard. He remarks that people are missing out on a chance to buy something from such a skilled craftsman. Laughing awkwardly, the main character says that he is just an ordinary blacksmith, but the guard asks him not to be so modest. The guard adds that he has seen the protagonist's katana with his own eyes. Its blade possesses a refined beauty designed for combat. The guard continues, noting that his words also apply to the other items made by Sig. The guard admits that he has never seen anything so beautiful, yet reminiscent of battles and wars. He concludes that the protagonist's blades are not mere trinkets. The protagonist listens to the guard in silence. The guard decides that since the main character's name is not well known, he must be the apprentice of some famous master. Or was he the personal blacksmith of some organization? Sig smiles and replies that he is pleased to hear such words from the mouth of such a warrior. The warrior asks to dispense with formalities and introduces himself. His name is Garland. The protagonist agrees, and they shake hands. The main character asks if Garland likes any of the goods. Garland replies that he would like to buy a katana, but he does not know how to use it and is unlikely to learn. Sig then suggests that the guard take a look at the daggers. After choosing one, Garland takes it out of its sheath. He breaks into a satisfied smile. The guard notes that it is a good item and adds that he will take one. The main character informs him that the dagger costs 40 silver coins. Garland is surprised, saying that it is very cheap, and the main character explains that this is the starting price. The guard decides that in that case it is worth buying now and takes another dagger. Sig thanks him. Garland then notices the smoked meats that the main character also sells. The main character replies that it is his hobby. Hearing this explanation, the guard laughs loudly again. He remarks that the main character is a strange guy and adds that he will try the smoked meats. C'est simple ogres. A man approaches the conversation and listens to their conversation. He politely asks if it is smoked meat. The main character nods and offers him a taste. As soon as the stranger takes a bite, his eyes light up. He exclaims that it is incredibly delicious and looks at the meat in amazement. The man immediately asks to buy it all, and the main character, stammering with surprise, agrees. The stranger adds that he will sell the meat in his store. See S-kyuu. Garland points to the buyer and explains that he is the owner of the most popular grocery store in Umbert. Beaming, the man says that he is confident in his taste, so the meat will definitely sell well. Waving goodbye, Sig remarks to himself, somewhat confused, that smoked meats sell better than swords. He hopes that he will still meet someone who needs katana. Meanwhile, on the 27th floor of the labyrinth, the adventuress dispatches the monsters with a sweeping blow. Her companions note in hushed tones that Ms. Keed, as expected, destroyed the monsters with a single attack of her katana. Then they hear the adventuress's mournful cry. Keed looks at the katana in horror, noting that it is completely chipped. She simply must get to the blacksmith sig as soon as possible. The main character looks at the counter. He notes that almost all the smoked meats have already been sold out. He believes that no one else will come today. At this moment, a young man cries out joyfully when he sees that the main character is selling weapons. The young man suggests that his companion look at the blades. She calls the guy Thor and remarks that weapons should be bought in normal stores. Looking closely at the couple, Sig decides that, judging by their appearance and equipment, they are novice adventurers. They seem to be even younger than Liliana. Thor passionately convinces his companion that it is in places like this that all kinds of legendary items can be found. She sighs irritably and agrees to quickly look at the weapons. Thor leans over the katanas and asks, "Is this a sword?" The main character explains what kind of weapon it is and offers to take a look. The boy takes the katana out of its sheath and freezes as if spellbound. He stands there silently. The main character decides that he doesn't like it. Thor replies that that's not the problem. He explains that it's as if sparks have struck his eyes. The boy adds that katanas are very cool and that he has never seen such blades before. Say smiles. He didn't expect anyone to react like that. Thor's companion thoughtfully agrees that the katana really does look very beautiful. However, she reminds the guy that he doesn't know anything about such blades, and last time he was sold a fake. He indignantly shuts the girl up and assures her that this time the weapon is 100% wonderful. Thor announces that he is buying the katana. The main character names the price, 200 gold coins. The guy's jaw drops. The girl asks why the price is so high, since the blade is very thin. The main character explains that katanas are made not from ordinary steel, but from diamond steel. In addition, it takes decades to learn how to make such a weapon. The girl remarks that she has heard that such steel is very expensive. You can't buy a powerful weapon for pennies. They exchange glances. The couple apologizes in unison, bowing their heads. Sig responds conciliatorily that everything is fine and adds that he is pleased that the adventurers immediately notice the high quality. Clutching his head, Thor says in despair that he won't be able to come up with 200 gold coins, even with his savings. The girl remarks that even in 10 years, an E rank wouldn't be able to save up that much. The guy demands that she not get cocky, since she's only one rank higher than him. The main character watches their quarrel with a smile. Everything is just like in the good old days in the guild. He always wants to help newbies. The main character suggests paying attention to a short sword. Thor asks to see it, and Sig hands him the weapon, warning him to be careful. The boy's eyes light up again, and he says that this blade is not bad either. The main character allows him to try out the short sword. He asks him not to cut anything on the counter, so as not to destroy it too. Thor doesn't really believe him. The boy takes the short sword and, seemingly, lightly strikes a stump. To the great surprise of Thor and his companion, it breaks in half. The girl asks in amazement when the boy had time to train so much. Thor replies heatedly that he did nothing at all. It's just that the blade is so sharp. His companion agrees, shocked. Sig leans over to Thor and informs him that a short sword costs only 30 silver coins. Thor happily replies that he has just that amount. The main character thinks to himself that he gave too big a discount, but it was still worth it. Only Thor noticed the quality of the katana, while everyone else just walked past the counter, and only Thor wanted to buy the blade so badly. The main character and the young adventurer thank each other. Thor happily examines his new weapon. Then his companion notices that they need to hurry to South Square. Thor thanks Sig again as he runs off, adding that now it will become much stronger. The couple waves goodbye and quickly runs off to attend to his business. The main character smiles as he watches them go, thinking how good it is to be young. Liliana approaches him. After greeting him, she asks how he is doing. The main character replies that, apart from the garland, he had only one customer, an adventurer who bought a short sword. The girl remembers the guard. Sig admits that people bought much more smoked meat than weapons. Atra approaches and asks in surprise if the main character really sold meat along with swords. Liliana adds that it's a rather strange combination. The younger girl says that the main character cooks really well, so it's a very good idea. Cynthia laughs and remarks that this will greatly increase the number of fans of Sig's talent. The main character asks how his companion's day went. Liliana replies that they managed to sell everything. She adds happily that the goods sold at a higher price. The main character asks in surprise. The girl explains that thanks to the magic bag, the vegetables remained fresh. Sig is glad that everything turned out so well. Liliana suggests that her mother take a short walk around the city. She does not object, especially since they finished earlier than usual today. Atra happily anticipates dinner. Liliana invites the main character to join them. That way they can show him Umbert. The main character gladly agrees. The group walks through the city streets. Liliana asks if the main character needs to buy anything. After thinking for a moment, he replies that he is running out of spices, so it would be a good idea to stock up on them. The girl asks about materials for forging, but the main character assures her that he has plenty of them in his bag. Liliana promises to show him a place where he can buy spices cheaper. She leads Sig through the market, deftly maneuvering through the crowd. Finally, the group reaches the merchant and greets him. He asks if they have already sold everything. Liliana nods and adds that now they are buying for themselves. The merchant asks what they would like. Pointing to the main character, the girl says that he likes mild spices. The main character introduces himself. He asks to see the salt. The merchant agrees and immediately places a whole bag in front of Sig. He looks at the seasoning. He says he will buy 5 kilograms of salt and the same amount of pepper. Shocked, Liliana asks why he needs so many spices. The main character replies that it would be a sin to leave such good merchandise behind, and that smoking requires a lot of seasoning. Hearing this, the merchant offers the main character a look at the wood chips. He has oak, apple, walnut, and grapevine wood chips available. Sig immediately says he will take everything and asks about the last type of wood chips. The merchant sets fire to the vine and shows it to the main character. The protagonist notices that it is soft, which means it will burn quickly. He concludes that this type of wood chip is suitable for adding aroma or for cold smoking. The merchant sees that the main character knows his stuff. Liliana says that Sig cooks very tasty meat. The seller notes that this is rare nowadays. The main character takes a piece of meat out of his bag. He offers the merchant a taste. The merchant gladly agrees. He tastes it and savors the treat with delight. The merchant says that the aroma of smoke has been deeply absorbed and notes the rich taste of wild boar meat. He asks if there is any more meat. The main character is already thinking about giving up blacksmithing and retraining as a chef. He offers to give 20 more pieces in exchange for a discount, and the seller agrees. They exchange goods. On the way back, Sig thanks Liliana for introducing him to such a wonderful merchant. She is happy to help. The main character thinks that without the girl's family, he would never have found this merchant. It is already getting dark, and Atra's stomach is growling. She complains that she is hungry. The main character apologizes for taking so long to buy the spices. Then he notices a street vendor selling snacks. Sig remembers that croquettes were sold in the city when he and his father visited Umbert. He offers this dish to Atra, and she enthusiastically agrees. To the protagonist's surprise, Cynthia approaches the vendor and asks for 4 pieces. When she returns, she treats the main character, explaining that it is in gratitude for his help with the vegetables. He does not refuse, since Cynthia insists so much. The group sits down at the table. The sisters enjoy the treat. Atra really likes the hot potatoes. Sig also takes a bite of a croquette. It really does taste great. Although it is just ordinary street food that costs less than 5 cents, the main character is overcome with nostalgia. His father always bought him this snack at the end. Thanks to the kindness of Cynthia's family, these memories become even brighter. New happiness and old memories overlap, and his heart feels lighter. Meanwhile, the company gets up from the table. The main character asks if they're going home now. Everyone agrees. Atra is completely exhausted and falls asleep on Sig's back. Meanwhile, Keed is walking down the street. She crossed the sea and left the far east to test her own skills. She doesn't care about weaklings. She is only interested in one thing. After saying hello, Keed enters the smithy. She looks around but finds that Sig is not inside. The craftsmen are frightened by her sudden appearance, and some are seeing the girl for the first time. Keed confidently walks deeper into the smithy. She turns to Torque, making sure it's him. The adventuress says she needs to repair her katana and asks where she can find Sig. Torque replies that the main character no longer works with him. He quit Wings of Glory 2 weeks ago. Keed is surprised. Then she abruptly grabs the guy by the collar and shakes him from side to side. She needs to know what happened. Torque tells her everything. Apologizing, Keed says she is going to the guildmaster. The adventuress enters Schmidt's office. He congratulates her on her return and notes that she did a good job. He asks what happened. Keed asks him to explain in detail why Sig left the guild. Schmidt looks at her grimly. He replies that the reason for his departure is the protagonist's selfishness. The guildmaster complains that the protagonist endlessly demanded to be given katana swords that no one else could forge, and when Schmidt asked him to stop whining and get to work, he took offense and left. Keed knows very well that Sig is a very responsible person who would never complain without reason. She is sure that the guild master simply overloaded him with unpleasant work. Moreover, Schmidt dared to insult the katanas in her presence. The adventuress coldly asks if it is the guild master's responsibility to retain valuable personnel. She asks who will repair her blade now. Schmidt asks her to stop dramatizing and reminds her that this is an S-rank guild. He explains that there are many skilled blacksmiths here and suggests that Keed ask one of them. She turns so sharply with her weapon in her hands that she scares the guild master. Keed angrily says that katanas are not made in the same way as traditional swords. An ordinary blacksmith would never be able to handle the blade. To herself, the adventuress thinks that the idiot Schmidt doesn't understand the importance of equipment at all, knows nothing about real combat, and has no idea what goes on in the dungeons. Turning toward the door, Keed announces that she is going to look for Sig. The guild master jumps up from his chair in indignation, shouting that this is out of the question, because he has a request for the adventurer from the Lord himself. After a moment's hesitation, she agrees, deciding to deal with the order first. As soon as she is done, she will look for the main character. Returning home, Sig looks at the tools laid out on the table. He sums up the results of his trip. The results are disappointing. He managed to sell only 3 short swords and not a single tool. The main character twirls a shovel in his hands. He thinks that the reason is that during his 15 years of absence, the focus has shifted from hoes to weapons because the land has already been thoroughly cultivated. The main character frowns. In theory, people from all the surrounding villages come to Umbert, so there should be demand in any case. He decides that it is foolish to judge based on just one day, since no one really knows him yet. Slapping himself on the cheeks, Sig is going to start preparing for the next trip. He decides to first make more short swords and arrowheads, which Liliana likes so much. The main character also plans to make weapons that are familiar to the local population so that they can see his skill for themselves. If he succeeds, someone might even become interested in katanas. He writes everything down on a piece of paper and takes measurements, and he gets to work. Sig spent days on end forging to his heart's content. He had no deadlines and no problems with customers. The main character feels that his mind is cleared. He wipes the sweat from his forehead. Although he enjoys forging, a week of work is still a week of work. After 7 days, the main character polishes his tools. He sighs wearily. He decides it's time to take a break. Every day, it gets warmer and warmer, and all the main character does is commute between his house and the forge. Even his sense of time has dulled. Sig goes out onto the porch, stretches with pleasure, and decides it's time for a walk. The main character wanders around the neighborhood, and then he notices some familiar figures. He greets the girls warmly, and they get up from the ground. Atra says hello to him, saying that they haven't seen each other in a long time. He nods and asks if they have also come out for a walk. Liliana, noting that the main character has indeed been out of sight for a long time, decides that he has gone back to work in the smithy. Sig explains that he was preparing goods for the next fair. After a pause, the older girl says that hard work and diligence are wonderful, but the main character should socialize with people more often. She adds passionately that they were already worried that something might have happened to him. He laughs awkwardly and promises to keep that in mind for the future. He asks if they take care of the field. Liliana nods and adds that they weed it. They have a large field, and it takes a lot of hard work. Sig looks around the huge area and asks if the girls can handle such a large meadow. Atra tugs at the main character's clothes and suggests that he help them. Liliana flares up and indignantly pulls her sister away. However, Sig agrees, deciding that a change of scenery and pulling weeds would not be a bad idea. The main character crouches down and pulls out the grass. He notices that everything is just like in the good old days. The main character adds that he hasn't worked in the fields for a long time. Liliana, weeding opposite him, asks if he used to be a farmer. He replies that he did a little bit when he was a child, before his mother died. The girl immediately apologizes for her question. Sig hastens to reassure her, saying that everything is fine. He is already old. It all happened a long time ago, but now the memories have come flooding back. The main character adds that he would not mind taking up farming again, but he simply does not have enough time on his own. Cynthia approaches and offers to join forces. She explains that they will do most of the work, and the main character will help in his spare time. The main character asks in surprise if that's how it's done. The woman says that this is common practice among farmers. Sig then asks what's in it for them. Cynthia replies that there is always a shortage of workers during the harvest season, and that male strength is always useful. She adds that they will feel more at ease if the main character continues to accompany them to Umbert. The main character thinks that there is no better option. He says aloud that he agrees with this arrangement. The sisters are happy that they will now be able to work in the fields together with Sig. He smiles. He adds that although he will not be coming often, he promises to do everything conscientiously. 3 days later, Liliana stops by the main character's house and asks if he can help in the fields early in the morning in the near future. He replies that he will be free the day after tomorrow and asks what they will be doing. The girl cheerfully announces that the spring cabbage is ripe and it's time to harvest it. The main character is happy to get started on the pleasant part of the work right away. On the appointed day, Sig meets the girls at the field. After exchanging greetings, the main character notes how energetic the girls are. Atra explains that they are used to getting up early. Liliana leads her companions to the field. The main character looks around in amazement at the scale of the work, timidly asking if all these vegetables are spring cabbage. The girl replies that they are, and that the next fields also belong to them. Sig just exhales, thinking to himself that he made a mistake in choosing partners for a little help. The main character examines the fruit. The morning dew glistens like precious stones. The vegetable has strong, dense leaves on the outside, but a soft core. The main character has never seen such beautiful cabbage before. Liliana and Sig crouch down. The girl explains how to determine the ripeness of the vegetable. You need to press your hand on a head of a certain size. Ideally, it should spring back. Liliana backs up her words with actions, demonstrating everything in practice. Nodding, the main character tries it himself. He puts his hand on the fruit, reminding himself that the head should not be too hard or too soft. It's like working with iron. Liliana also demonstrates how to cut cabbage beautifully. To do this, you need to tilt the head, move the lower leaves aside, and cut the vegetable at the root. The girl shows the result. The main character replies that he understands, and he's going to try it himself. He brings the knife closer and asks if that's where he should cut. Liliana explains that this will damage the head itself, so it is better to cut lower. Say notes. He holds a vegetable and wields the knife. Beaming and holding the cabbage firmly in his hands, he announces that everything is ready. Liliana notes that he did it skillfully. Atra adds that it's not bad for a beginner. The sisters work quickly with their knives, cutting head after head. The main character is amazed at the speed with which the girls handle the cabbage. Atra turns around and asks to be called Mentor, and the main character repeats after her. Sometime later, with a sigh, Sig leans back wearily against a crate filled to the brim with cabbage. He notices that it is already noon. The main character is overcome with a pleasant feeling of accomplishment. Liliana asks if he can put all the heads of cabbage in a magic bag. This will keep the cabbage fresh and make it easier to carry. The main character opens the bag, and Atra throws the vegetable inside, and it is sucked inside. The girl marvels at how convenient this thing is and cheerfully continues to throw in the heads of cabbage. Sig laughs and agrees that it's great that the bag keeps the produce fresh. Scratching the back of his head, the main character awkwardly asks if they have given him too much cabbage. A whole box. Liliana assures him that it's fair payment for his work. The main character thanks her and promises to try even harder in the future. Then Cynthia calls out to him and invites him to lunch. That way, Sig could try the freshly picked cabbage. The main character is delighted by the lavishly set table. He notes that everything looks very tasty. Of course, the main character would never have cooked so much for himself. At most, he would have fried or smoked something. Those gathered at the table wish each other bon appetit. Sig tries the dish and is surprised to find that it is sweet. He says that the salad is very tasty. The main character adds that the cabbage is sweet, crispy, and not at all like the usual kind. Liliana explains that the spring harvest is always more tender. The main character feels how fresh the cabbage is. Such products are a feast for the body. Sig tries a spoonful of soup, and the main character's eyes light up. The dish is rich and sweet, and the taste of the cabbage goes perfectly with the other vegetables. Sig enjoys his lunch while the sisters and their mother watch him. Liliana asks if the main character is going to Umbert. He replies that he plans to leave in a couple of days. He invites the girl and her family to accompany him. They happily agree. The main character is worried that if he doesn't come to the fair for a long time, Garland and Thor will forget about him. Before setting off, Sig puts all his goods into his bag. He and his companions set off on their journey. The main character notices that the round trip takes at least 6 hours and decides that he needs to find a way to get there faster. The group approaches the wall of Umbert. An unfamiliar guard stands at the gate. After providing all the necessary information, Sig politely asks where Garland is. The guard replies that he is patrolling the streets and allows them to enter the city. After thanking him, the main character moves on. He wanted to say hello to Garland, but he is the commander of the guard, so he is not supposed to stand at the gate all the time. The main character waves goodbye to Cynthia and her daughters. He walks through the market square, heading to his old place. The main character does not intend to change stalls, so as not to confuse customers. Sig lays out his goods. Suddenly, something catches his attention. He turns around and sees a line of people waiting. The main character is surprised, but he decides to ask where they are waiting, although it will be awkward if the customers are not waiting for him. The main character politely asks the first customer if they are waiting for him. The customer nods and adds that the whole line is already waiting for him. Sig looks at the crowd in shock. He doesn't understand where all these people came from. Thanks for watching. Write your feedback in the comments. If you like the story, please like and subscribe. See you soon.